On this episode, I'm going to show you how I graffitied these wooden boards. The first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to stamp this wood background, this wooden board's background onto my card. But if you can see, the stamp image is actually smaller than the card itself, and it's going to be a little difficult to get this square to make it straight. And I'm being a little lazy. I don't want to stamp it on another card and attach it. So I have this wonderful little tool called a cutie pie, and my cutie pie is a stamp positioner, and I'm going to show you how to use it. So you take your cutie pie, and this is a clear sheet of window plastic. And we call it window plastic because you can turn it into a window card, but for this purpose, I'm going to use it as a positioning tool. So you notice that I have the plastic, and I slide it into the corner of my cutie pie. And I'm going to use permanent ink. I've got StazOn here. And I take my permanent ink, and we're just going to ink up my stamp. And I'm going to stamp the image right onto this plastic. And the way that I do that is I take the corner of my stamp and slide it into the corner of my cutie pie. Make sure you hold on to everything that's nice and tight, and just press down. Get nice even coverage of ink. You can pull your cutie pie away, and when you pull your stamp off of the plastic, you can see you have the image on the plastic. Now, let that dry, and it just takes a couple of minutes for it to dry. Then what you're going to do is you have to remember that this was the corner of your card. So I'm going to take a permanent marker, and I'm going to draw a little arrow here. Well, that's a little hard to see, but there's a little arrow, and that tells me that that is going to be in the corner of my cutie pie, because I'm going to use that again. I take my note card and I align the image so that I could see this has a nice margin around everything, and everything looks pretty straight. Put my cutie pie, I butt that right up to the corner of the clear plastic, and then I'm going to remove the plastic. Then I'm going to take my stamp, and this time I'm going to ink this up with gray. And I'm using some Marvy dye-based ink, and this is the light gray ink, even though it looks black on the stamp pad. And I take the corner of my stamp, and you want to make sure that you line this up properly. So we're gonna double check it here. So I can see that this is actually this corner of my stamp. Remove that. Slide my stamp into the corner with the cutie pie, and then press down nice and even. Gotta let it. And then pull this up, and as you can see, I have this nice margin all the way around, and I'm nice and straight. Just love that tool. Then what we're going to do is we're going to take another stamp, and I've got this henna mandala here, and I want to stamp this along the edge of my wooden boards. But if I ink this up and I stamp it, I'm going to end up with it in the margin, and I don't want that. So I have some paper tape here, and this is called Eclipse Tape. And what the Eclipse Tape does is it masks the image. So I'm just going to line this up right here at the top, just like this. And I'm going to take another piece and align it in on the bottom. And then I'm going to use my black ink, and this is dye-based ink up my stamp. And I want to stamp the first one in the center, because I'm going to stamp this 3 times. The second one is going to be right above it, but I'm stamping right on the top of that Eclipse Tape. And then the third one. And what I love about the Eclipse tape is when you pull the tape up, you can see that it leaves the margin nice and clean. Then the last stamp that I'm going to use is my Happy Day. But this one I want to do a little bit different. I want this to kind of stand out. So I'm actually going to emboss that with black embossing powder. So I take my clear Versamark ink and I ink up the stamp. And you can stamp this anywhere on your card or anywhere on the wooden boards. So I'm going to stamp that little bit of a diagonal there. Cover up my ink pad because you don't want to get embossing powder on there. And I know this is hard to see, but you're going to take your black embossing powder and we're just going to pour that right over my stamped image. And the black embossing powder sticks to the wet ink. And I'm just going to use my snappy tray to put the excess powder back in the container. And oh my goodness, I've got a lot of static going here, so I'm just going to use my sparkle sweeper and just sweep the excess powder right back into the container. Then what I'm going to do is melt the powder with my heat gun. The final step is to color in these wooden boards to make it look like an old barn, the side of a barn, or a piece of wood that's been sitting out for ages and it's gotten sun bleached. So I have all of these permanent ink markers, and you notice they're all light shades of gray. Oops, let's get the rubber band off of here. Okay, so if I take my markers and you just slide it, but I'm not going to go into some of the words. I'm just going to color. And you don't have to be neat about this. This is the best part about this coloring technique. It can be a little sloppy, it doesn't matter. Just don't work into the margin. This is a different shade of gray. And you notice that I'm not coloring over that mandala. What's kind of crazy is you end up using all of those funny colors of gray that you get in the kit that you don't know what to do with. All right, and the final thing is to color in the Happy Day with a purple marker here. And what I love about this technique is that because that background was stamped really light, you can't see it through your word stamp in the mandala. Now I do have, this is the clear blender, and what I like about the blender is you can put a little bit on the top edges of some of your letters, and it actually fuzzes it out. You can't see it right now. You have to wait until the ink dries. And a couple of these areas are a little bit too dark. So if I apply quite a bit of the clear, it'll blend that together. And it makes it look real subtle. Last thing, I see that I skipped in between the O's here. So let's take another And just color that in so it doesn't look so obvious. And there I have a Happy Day card with a few mandalas stamped onto what looks like a distressed piece of the side of a barn or a fence post or some piece of distressed wood. For this and other projects, visit our website. And remember, when creativity knocks, open the door.